You're watching Investigation Discovery on Demand.
Braden Fuchsa disappeared on Monday, July 15th, 2009. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Braden Fuchsa's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. Braden Fuchsa vanishes in summer 2009.
It was just so out of character.
His parents panic when they discover a missing handgun.
My heart just sank.
And a puzzling trail of clues that he's left in his wake.
We didn't know if he hit north, south, east, or west.
Authorities discover that this young man has been guarding a dark secret.
Braden was pretty freaked out about having spent a night in jail.
And the search for him turns into a manhunt 700 miles away.
At this point, they would probably be looking for a body.
It's July 2009. 22-year-old Braden Fuchsa is enjoying summer on his own. He's just moved out of his parents' house into an apartment in the college town of Lawrence, Kansas.
Braden was really dead set that he wanted to be out on his own. He had the opportunity to move in with an individual that he went to school with. They had found him an apartment, and they were going to move in together.
It was a big deal for me for him to leave home, but he wanted to be independent, which we encourage. I mean, you have to let him go at some point. The guns and everything.
When he's not at work, Braden spends almost all his time doing outdoor activities.
Braden, from the get-go, enjoyed the outdoors. We boated, we skied and tubed and wakeboard. Every free moment that we had, we were fishing. He was an outdoor person, 100%.
He's been camping since he can remember, since he was a toddler.
What is that? Did you catch him?
He loved to fish, and he loved to hunt.
Braden has an especially strong affinity for mountains, which was apparent on a family trip to Colorado in 2007.
He had more fun that week. He was constantly, oh, let's stop and do this, and let's stop. You know, we were hiking, and I mean, he was just beside himself.
In mid-July 2009, Braden's parents are out of town for a couple days. When they get back home Wednesday the 15th, Starla contacts Braden.
I text him because he knew we had been out of town and told him that we were home, we had made it okay.
Starla exchanges several texts with her son. She tells him that she and Todd have plans to see a film that night.
I told him I hated to cut our time short, but I had to go because the movie was going to start, and I'd talk to him later.
Starla and Todd spend the evening relaxing at the movies. But when they get home, they notice something odd.
Todd had gotten on the computer and was looking, and he said, Braden transferred some money.
It's not a big deal. It's usually one of the type of situations where Braden or a daughter would call and say, I'm short on money, I don't get paid till Friday, can you float me some money? And it happened all the time.
But this time, the amount that Braden has transferred is much higher than usual.
It was $800. Usually we're talking $300-400. Just enough to pay his portion of the rent or insurance being due or something like that. I made a phone call to him and got his voicemail, left him a message just asking him, what's up, were you in trouble, and you have enough money.
Starla and Todd go to bed feeling curious, but not overly worried about the transfer. They figure their son will give them an explanation in the morning. But the next day, Braden doesn't call.
Thursday came around, still hadn't heard from him, and it wasn't like Braden. Starla and him were very close. They text back and forth daily.
Then, another day passes without word from Braden. His parents spend the rest of the week searching for him, making a routine of calling regularly and driving by his apartment and work to look for him.
We didn't know what was going on. We just bound and determined we were going to keep up the ritual of, going to his hangout and try to find him.
Although Braden's parents are very worried, they don't call the police, wanting to respect their son's newfound independence. But they do reach out to his friends, including his ex-girlfriend, Elena Ryan. The young couple dated for almost 4 years, breaking up only a year and a half earlier.
I spoke with Starla and told her that I had seen Braden at a gas station in town. But it was a very brief interaction, just kind of a hi, how you doing sort of thing. He didn't seem overly eager to talk to me. And because he had been trying to pursue a reconciliation prior to that, that seems a little strange.
Elena's encounter with Braden is only hours before Starla's last text with her son on Wednesday, July 15th. His parents' concern grows.
I mean, you can imagine the worry. We were both a wreck.
It's been 4 full days since Starla and Todd have heard from their son. They're at a loss as to what to do next when they have a sudden suspicion.
For some reason, on Sunday morning, we got up and it was just one of those feelings.
In our master bedroom closet, there's a shelf in there.
We kept a 9mm in the closet for protection. Our granddaughter had been there 2 weeks before, and I had put it up high in the closet so that she could not get it. So I had just seen it the week before when I'd went and checked on it.
So I seen the gun case there up on the shelf, and I don't know why I did it, but I just grabbed a hold of the gun case itself. It was empty, and my heart just sank.
Only family members know where the gun is kept. Todd and Starla are sure that Braden has taken it.
The gun was gone, and we've become very nervous, and Todd said, we're gonna file a police report now.
The search for Braden takes on a new urgency. Where did he go? And why does he need a gun?
It's the worst feeling in the world. Our stomachs just dropped.
Coming up, Braden's parents are prevented from filing a missing persons report for their son.
Our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
Todd and Starla Fuchsa have not seen or heard from their 22-year-old son Braden in 4 days, despite repeatedly trying to contact him. But the alarms really go off when a handgun goes missing from their home.
The minute we discovered the gun was missing, we went straight to the police.
But at the Olathe Police Department, the Fuchsas are not permitted to file a missing persons report for Braden because he is over 21 and no longer living at home.
Our problem was he was an adult. He's still our child, but they don't see it that way.
They actually told us since he was living in Lawrence with a roommate, the roommate would need to be the one that submitted the report.
And it was kind of frustrating because our emotions were extremely high at that point. We didn't know what else to do.
Just in conversation, I mentioned that, well, he's got my pistol. That changed the whole subject. They automatically took our report and filed it.
Braden's parents give police a detailed description of their son, his vehicle, and the handgun. Detective Kenton Thompson is put on the case.
I reviewed the report that we had this missing 22-year-old man and that he basically had just disappeared. We've got the handgun gone from his parents' house. So obviously now we've got this concern of what's that about.
As Detective Thompson begins his investigation, Braden's parents go home and wait. But they can't stop thinking about the gun.
You don't know if he was gonna hurt himself, if something went wrong and he was protecting himself, if something had happened to him and somebody was after him. You just don't know.
Braden's parents are confident that their son is an experienced gun user.
He's been using a gun since he was big enough to walk. He was hunting by the time he was 5.
But they also know that the gun that Braden took from their house is not meant for hunting.
A lot of police carry 9mm. It's more for target shooting, and it's more of a protection gun than anything.
Braden's former girlfriend, Elena, is mystified as well.
Braden had his own guns. He had his own handgun. I know he had one in Lawrence. Why would he take his dad's handgun instead of his own?
Looking for information, Braden's parents try calling the last people to have contact with their son.
Braden's cell phone was part of our account, so I had access to his records.
And we took like the last 20 numbers and he texts them.
You know, this is Braden's dad. Haven't seen Braden in a little while. Can you please call me?
At first, no one responds. But slowly, calls start coming in, including one from Braden's roommate.
He called, and him and I visited a little bit, and he did not know where Braden had gone.
But his roommate does know something else.
We found out that on Wednesday, Braden grabbed his bag and told his roommate that he was coming over to Olathe to spend the night with Todd and I, with his parents.
But Braden's parents were home on Wednesday night, and Braden never showed up.
To say that he was coming to our house was nothing big, and the roommate wouldn't have checked it out. We wouldn't have thought anything about it.
Given Braden's lie, his parents tried to pin down their son's actual movements.
We knew he had been at our house at some time because the gun was missing. We have the neighbors across the street, and we went over and asked them if they had seen Braden, and they said yes, they had seen him at the house that morning and said he was there about 15 minutes or so. He had pulled in, waved to him, you know, hollered hi, went into the house, and come back out and waved to him again and got in his car and left. So that was about 10:30, 10:40.
It was later that same day that Starla last texted with Braden. His cell phone bill indicates that Braden didn't call or text anyone else after that point.
I had talked to him at 2:30, so that kind of gave us a timeline of what he was doing.
As Braden's parents try to put all the pieces together, another clue surfaces. Todd receives a call from Megan Loach, who, unknown to his parents, is Braden's new girlfriend.
I met Braden at a party in Lawrence at the end of May 2009. Braden is really funny. He's the center of anything. Everybody who was at the party was there for Braden. Everybody knew Braden, and he made me laugh. I instantly liked Braden, and I think he instantly liked me.
Megan and Braden have only been dating for 2 months, but she feels close enough to him that she is disturbed by his behavior the last time they meet, the night before he disappears.
He spent the night at my house. We made dinner and we were hanging out. Braden was just really upset and just not his normal self. Braden's really outgoing and he's always making people laugh, and it was weird to see him just worried. He just looked worried.
The next morning, Wednesday, the day he disappears, Braden leaves abruptly.
I think it was about mid-morning. Braden got up and left, and he usually doesn't leave without saying goodbye or something, or he usually hangs around. And then I had heard a car start in the parking lot. So I looked out my window and he was pulling out. So I texted him and said no goodbye or not saying goodbye anymore or something. Braden just texted me back and said, "Goodbye, Megan." That was it. That was the last time I had talked to him.
4 days later, no one, including his parents, has heard from Braden. And the next phone call sends the Fuchsas even deeper down the rabbit hole.
Later that afternoon, we got a phone call from the police department. They had located his vehicle in Douglas, Wyoming area.
Coming up, Braden has been hiding a dark secret from his family.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment.
On July 15th, 2009, Braden Fuchsa leaves his home in Lawrence, Kansas. His whereabouts are completely unknown by his friends and family. Then, 4 days later, police report that his vehicle has been found in Wyoming.
What is in Wyoming? He knew no one in Wyoming, and why is he going that direction? What was causing him to go there? We were just a little dumbfounded, to be honest. There was a lot going through our minds.
Wyoming Highway Patrol found the vehicle as an abandoned vehicle. They did a check on it at 10:44 a.m. on Thursday, July 16th. There's no one around it. Now, at that point, Braden had not been reported missing, so they left because they had no other information available to them.
3 days later, on Sunday, July 19th, Braden's parents filed a missing persons report. It's only then that Braden's information is entered into the National Crime Information Center database and made available to authorities across the country.
We got what's called a delayed entry hit off of that tag, which told us that back on the 16th, that tag was run by the Wyoming Highway Patrol.
Braden's parents tell the police that as far as they are aware, their son doesn't know anyone in Wyoming, nor has he ever been there. The development in the case makes them very uneasy.
I mean, there's just so many missing pieces to this whole thing. The more information that kept coming up, the more confused we got, and it was just so out of character.
Looking for answers, Detective Thompson contacts many of the same people that Braden's parents have spoken to. He agrees that something seems very wrong.
I work a lot of juvenile cases, and typically the first people I talk to is their girlfriend or their boyfriend and their best friend. Those two people. If anyone's going to have information, usually have some idea of what has happened. And in this case, his roommate was his best friend, and he has no information. And Megan was completely surprised by it also.
Braden's former longtime girlfriend, Elena, isn't surprised that he didn't confide in anyone.
From my perspective, Braden didn't have a lot of close friends. He was a sweet, sweet guy, but he was very quiet. I don't know if I would call him shy, but he was just very quiet and didn't put himself out there.
But Braden's new girlfriend has a differing account of his character.
Braden was a very outgoing person. I'm kind of shy, so Braden definitely had to be more outgoing to get me kind of out of my shell. It's weird hearing about someone that you were so close to in a situation that you never expected. It started to become more like I never really knew Braden.
As Detective Thompson struggles to get some insight into Braden's actions, a possible motive emerges. Braden is facing potential prison time on a theft charge.
The theft charge resulted from Braden stealing some cash from his employer. It was a felony level theft, which means in Kansas it was over $1,000.
Braden's parents were not told of their son's arrest when they filed the missing persons report. When police call to notify them, they're stunned.
We were very shocked. He'd never been in trouble ever. I don't know if he'd ever even had a speeding ticket. He was not that kind of kid.
Braden is a straight, go-forward kid. And when he was in trouble, his mom usually knew about it. He would confess. So, you know, just anything to happen like that was just, it didn't happen with Braden.
But as Braden's parents think back to their son's behavior, the recent transfer from their account, as well as some earlier events, they begin to recognize signs of his growing money problems.
Towards the midsummer time frame, Bass Pro had cut his department to a limited amount of hours, and it left him with 8 hours for the entire week.
Still, Braden manages to keep his true financial state under wraps.
Braden reinforced us that he had enough side jobs that he was getting by.
But in reality, Braden's financial troubles are quickly catching up with him.
His roommate told me in June, Braden was late getting his share of the rent to him. He didn't think a whole lot about that at the time. But then in July, he was late again, and you know, like a week late.
As Braden's parents later learn, their son is so desperate for money that a week before he disappears, he dips into the till at work and gets caught.
Braden worked in security at Bass Pro. So his job was transferring money back and forth at closing time, putting stuff in the safe. The way we understand is they were closing up. Braden had taken money from the registers to the lockup spot. They confronted Braden when he come into work the next day. Braden said, yeah, it's back at my apartment. They brought in the police, talked to him a while. He confessed everything, and the police actually took him back to Lawrence to pick up the money. It's my understanding that he returned nearly all of the money. I don't think quite all of it, but nearly all of the money.
Despite his cooperation with the law, Braden is immediately taken into custody.
After that initial report was made, he was arrested. He was taken directly to the Johnson County Adult Detention Center.
Braden spends the night in jail. He is released the next day, but according to Braden's roommate, the harrowing experience of being locked up stays with him.
Braden was, quote, pretty freaked out about having spent the night in jail. Being arrested, you know, for him was a pretty major life event and was distressing for him.
Braden was scared. I think when he got arrested, they had exaggerated how much trouble he was in, and I think that Braden he's never been in trouble before, and he was just really frightened by that, and he thought he was going to go to jail for, you know, a couple of years.
Braden is due in court for a preliminary hearing on July 16th, but as the date approaches, Braden appears to set a plan in motion.
When he left his apartment on the 15th, he told his roommate, I'm going to go spend the night with my parents in Olathe, okay? That was Wednesday night. He had court the next day. Well, that is actually when he left.
When his case is called the next morning, Braden's car is already 2 states away, in Wyoming. Braden is nowhere to be found. All signs point to his being a fugitive from the law, but no one saw it coming.
We would never have suspected that something like this was going on, ever, because we've always had such an open relationship with our kids. It was almost like a Twilight Zone moment. It's like, what is this? I don't understand.
From his conversations with friends and family, Detective Thompson paints a portrait of what he believes to be Braden's last days in Kansas. A young man, ashamed of his crime and extremely afraid of getting a harsh sentence, panics and flees.
I believe his perception of it was that it was going to be much more serious for him than it probably would have been. This was the lowest level that would qualify as a felony theft. He didn't have any criminal history, so this would not have been a potentially serious sentence. It wasn't going to involve a prison term or anything like that. If if he truly understood the likely outcome, perhaps he would not have been so distraught about the arrest.
Myself, my wife, the detective have all called and left voicemails on his phone saying that come back, hit your court date. This is not as bad as you think.
While there now seems to be strong motive for Braden's sudden bolt from Kansas, his exact whereabouts are still a mystery. Is Braden running from the law and carrying a handgun? Or has something much worse happened to him? Coming up, as more details come to light, investigators make a devastating discovery.
We only missed having some contact with him by an hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Get more Disappeared online at investigation.discovery.com. After being arrested for a felony-level theft, Braden Fuchsa flees his home state of Kansas. On the day he is due in court for a preliminary hearing, his car turns up 700 miles away in Wyoming. But Braden is nowhere to be found. As the details of Braden's case emerge, the investigation focuses on the largest piece of evidence, Braden's car.
When the Highway Patrol found the vehicle, Braden was not present.
And then we got a call that they had went ahead and opened it. Nothing looked suspicious in it whatsoever.
The Wyoming Highway Patrol tows the vehicle to Douglas, a small town just north of where it was found. Braden's parents make the long drive to pick it up themselves.
Star and I left early Friday morning and drove the entire route to Douglas.
I think the drive to get there was about 13 hours. It was a very long drive. You're very anxious because you're scared of what you're going to find once you get there. It was a very emotional trip.
As Braden's parents make their way to Douglas, they retrace the journey they believe their son made 10 days earlier.
From Cheyenne north to Douglas, the population is hardly any. You go through some very small towns along the way. The houses are far and few between. It's got the hills and very pretty country.
As they drive through the changing landscape, they look for physical cues that would indicate why Braden chose this direction.
We don't really understand why that area, even though it's absolutely beautiful. There were the plains there, it's just gorgeous, but that's not what he's always wanted. I mean, he's always wanted the mountains. So the area that we found the car, it just doesn't coincide with what we know that he wanted.
It's late at night by the time the Fuchsas arrive in Douglas. The next morning, they go directly to the tow yard to pick up Braden's car.
This is something that's kind of bothered me. There was a key code on the door, a lock, and Braden always used that. He always stuck his keys under the floor mat. That was his habit, and I looked under the floor mat and the keys were there. That just, in my eyes, tells me he locked his vehicle and walked away.
As Starla and Todd continue to look through their son's belongings, the more convinced they are that Braden willingly left his car behind.
The clothes looked like he had went through the bag, kind of trying to sort out what he was going to take and what he wasn't going to take.
Because Braden has so recently moved out of his parents' home, Starla and Todd have a good idea of what items he might be carrying with him.
His cell phone was missing and he took his wallet. The boots were gone. There was a pair of jeans, so that tells me that he had one pair of jeans, the pair he was wearing, the boot, maybe a couple t-shirts, and the gun was missing.
But why Braden abandoned his car baffles detectives. Was he trying to throw off police, or did he leave his car by the side of the highway in the hopes that it would be found?
I quite honestly just cannot make sense of that. I don't know why he would abandon that vehicle that way where he did, because you certainly know it's going to be found. I mean, that's probably the easiest place to find a vehicle. You leave alongside the interstate, you know the highway patrol is going to come by and stop and check on it.
Upon their return to Kansas, the Fuchses hand over to the Olathe police several items they found in the car. One of them leads Detective Thompson to a key witness.
It was a receipt from a tire repair place out of Wheatland, Wyoming. That receipt indicated that he had purchased a used tire, and of course it had the company's name and phone number on it.
Detective Thompson calls the garage and is able to speak with the mechanic who saw Braden.
I was woke up from the guy that runs the pit stop Conoco that there was a fellow that came in and had a blown out tire.
Reuben Kaufman is a mechanic in Wheatland, Wyoming. He often gets calls for people who have broken down along Interstate 25, but that day, he would unknowingly help a fugitive.
I got the phone call around 5:30, 6 o'clock. His tire blew out at the Bordeaux exit, south of Wheatland, exit 67. He wanted me to run down there and put another tire on it and come back and pick him up and take him back down there.
Reuben drives down the interstate and finds Braden's car on the side of the road.
The tire had blown out. It was literally shreds. I mean, it looked like it'd blown out at high speed. There was no fixing it. It was just shredded.
Reuben replaces the blown-out tire, then returns to the pit stop to pick up Braden and bring him back to his car.
He seemed like a nice, clean-cut man. You know, very nice people person.
As the two men make small talk, Braden shares with Reuben information he has kept from everyone else.
I asked him where he was going. He said he was headed for the university in Billings.
Billings, Montana, is 400 miles directly north of Wheatland.
It made sense because that's the route you would take to go to Billings, is Interstate 25.
But according to Braden's parents, their son wasn't planning on going to school, nor does he know anyone in Montana. Nevertheless, they admit that their son has long been obsessed with the state.
Braden was infatuated with Montana, and Billings would have been where he wanted to go. He at one point had checked into finding out more about the game warden system in Montana. He wanted to be outdoors and in nature. That was his goal.
It was kind of an uncanny obsession, but he was real into John Wayne movies, and so I think he just saw Montana as scarcely populated, lots of nature. He could fish, he could hunt, he could do all the things that he loved, and that was the place to do it, I guess.
Slowly, a theory begins to take shape. Braden, running from the law, decides to disappear and start a new life in Montana. When Wyoming authorities examine the area, the theory gains strength.
From where the vehicle was found, along northbound I-25 south of Douglas, at some point on up the road is a truck stop.
You know, it was a very short walk to the rest stop. And with Braden's personality, he could walk up to somebody and strike a conversation in a heartbeat and wouldn't have a problem talking his way for a trip further up the road.
The search for Braden is now broadened to include Montana and beyond.
Well, we did contact the chief of the police department for the university there in Billings, and then we also contacted Billings, Montana City Police Department. We made a poster, we distributed it along that known route, in other words, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and even into Canada.
Detective Thompson is also able to create a more exact picture of Braden's flight out of Kansas.
My belief would be that he just drove through the night on the 15th. From kind of the time frame that Reuben has given me, he had the blown tire approximately 10 miles south of Wheatland. He got back on the road with the vehicle fixed somewhere around 8 o'clock, continued northbound on I-25.
Oddly, Braden then abandons the car less than an hour's drive north of where he got the flat. Shortly after that, the Wyoming Highway Patrol comes across the vehicle.
You know, the frustrating thing there is that, you know, we only missed having some contact with him by an hour, or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half at the most, between when he left the vehicle and the time that Wyoming trooper stopped to check on it initially.
An hour earlier, and Braden might have been intercepted. Instead, his absence is going on 2 weeks. Disappointingly, the expanded search for Braden does not produce results.
Even though we tried to get information distributed as widely as we could, there was just no further leads, no contact.
Braden has been missing for 6 months. Suddenly, there's movement in the case.
I came in my office one morning and had a voicemail from a woman who works at the Salvation Army in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She told me she was 100% certain that she saw Braden.
Coming up, new hope that Braden is on his way home.
He said it was a long way back to Kansas.
6 months after Braden Fuchsa disappears from his home in Kansas, a missing person poster in Cheyenne, Wyoming generates an exciting tip. Linda Curl works at a Salvation Army soup kitchen, where she sees many down-and-out transients. She is certain that Braden was one of them.
We put bread out for the homeless or the low income or whoever needs it. And this particular day, we'd had a lot of bread, so we told him, take as many as you can use. It wouldn't fit in his pocket, so he was sticking it under his arms and trying to hold 3 or 4 loaves instead of just 1 or 2. And he said it was a long way back to Kansas, so he would take it.
It was kind of exciting to hear. If you had been in the Douglas area or on north past Douglas, you know, that would be your way back.
Convinced this could be more than coincidence, Detective Thompson contacts Braden's parents. The bread story strikes a chord.
My heart just dropped because Braden loved bread. He loves Italian. It was terrible because you try to make the bread and he was stealing it all the time. You know, I mean, he would eat it before we even had it toasted.
The news fills the Fuchsas with fresh hope that Braden is on his way home. But just as quickly as the excitement builds, it begins to dissipate.
Cheyenne police looked at various places where some of their homeless people stay, and obviously watching the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army employees obviously are now very aware to be on the lookout for him. There was just no further sighting, no further indication that he was there.
Detective Thompson begins to doubt the sighting, as it's based solely on the poster.
She sees a missing person poster for Braden, and she says, that is the guy that was in here last week and had lunch. But it can be very difficult for someone to make that identification. This person was in last week, and now I'm seeing the poster this week.
But Linda remains steadfast in her conviction that it was Braden whom she saw.
I was absolutely sure it was the same person that had been here because of his eyes and his smile. He didn't look wore out and tired like a lot of our people do. He had a very nice, bright smile, very pleasant, extremely polite. He didn't look like any of our regular people. He didn't look like a homeless person.
But the trail comes to a grinding halt in Cheyenne. In the coming weeks and then months, there are no more sightings of Braden. As time goes by, Braden's loved ones begin to consider a darker theory.
Initially, I wanted to think that he just needed to get out of town for a little while, gather his thoughts, and needed some space. But the more time that went by and no one had heard from him, I was worried he may have ended his life. My biggest fear is that he just couldn't cope with all of the stresses that he had and needed a way out, and that was his way out.
For Detective Thompson, the idea that Braden wanted to end his life is just one more theory that doesn't add up.
We still don't know what his main motivation was for fleeing. But if your objective is to harm yourself, you certainly don't have to drive 10 hours to do that.
"11 months have passed since Braden's disappearance. Frustrated by the lack of new clues in the case, authorities organize a comprehensive search of the area where Braden's vehicle was abandoned.
3 things you want to be looking for: eyeglasses, the necklace, and the watch.
Oh, there was a watch?
Yeah,
And a mic.
possibly a handgun.
Searchers scour the land surrounding the highway where Braden's car was found. Family and friends privately fear what they might uncover.
I think at this point, out there, they would probably be looking for a body. It's kind of in the back of everyone's heads, I think. I'm just the only one who has ever said it.
After 2 days, the searchers do not find anything. But seeing Wyoming firsthand, Detective Thompson wonders if Braden might still be out there, living under the radar.
Perhaps he just wanted to start over. Perhaps this criminal charge was just more than he could deal with. Maybe he's just continued to run from that. If that's the case, he's pretty good at it, because he certainly left no trail after Wyoming.
There's a lot of young men that move out here. I was one of them. You know, there's something about the lifestyle out here that appealed to me, and it attracts a lot of young men from all over.
But experience also makes it difficult for Detective Thompson to believe that Braden could go so long without surfacing somewhere.
It's hard for an adult to just, you know, drop out, because eventually you have to get a job, you have to make some money, find a place to live, typically, that sort of thing. And those are things that generate a trail. And, you know, to just completely disconnect from your family and your friends and not reach out to them at all, it would be very difficult to do. If he's a fugitive, he's the darndest one I've looked for in a long time.
Braden's loved ones continue to hope that Braden is alive and living in the great western wilderness he always dreamed of.
In our hearts, we believe he's still there. I think he's a little bit more than confused. I think it's more humiliated, very, very upset with himself that he disappointed himself and maybe us.
Typically, he has not been in trouble. I think he's just uncertain. He's probably mad at himself and just uncertain what to do. Scared.
Everybody wants to think that their missing loved one is perfectly happy and safe and healthy. So I'd like to think that Braden is out fishing somewhere. I like to think that he's got a dog and a fishing pole and is just hanging out, drinking a beer and doing his thing. I just want to know that he's happy, that he's safe, and that he's okay in life.
Thank you for watching Investigation Discovery on Demand.
April Pitzer disappeared on Monday, June 28, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. April Pitzer's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. A former model and mother of two plans a homecoming after 6 months in the Mojave Desert.
She had real high hopes, and she was so excited.
She wanted to go see her kids. It was time for her to leave.
But she never makes it home.
I said, something has happened to April. April's gone. They've done something with her.
A harrowing tale begins to unfold.
A person made the comment that, I know where she's at. She's in a hole.
If somebody gets rid of somebody out here in the desert, it's rare they're ever found.
It's a windy, unforgiving evening in the Mojave Desert in May 2004. 30-year-old April Beth Pitzer aimlessly wanders along old Route 66 in Newberry Springs, California. The young mother of two from Texas, who once aspired to be a model, is now homeless, hungry, and defeated. She wonders how life has come to this. Just 4 years earlier in Fort Worth, Texas, April Pitzer was living the life that dreams are made of.
Chase loved April. He loved her very much, and she loved him. April's father-in-law bought him a beautiful new home, and I mean, they had it all.
Married to Chase Pitzer and about to give birth to their first little girl, April's life is heading in the right direction. Then comes a knock on her door that changes everything.
The DEA showed up at her residence in Fort Worth and told her she was coming back to Arkansas to be a federal witness.
When April was 22 and living in Arkansas, she was arrested for driving while intoxicated. She agreed to become a drug informant rather than face DWI charges. Now, 6 years later, she is called upon to testify. With the help of April's testimony, dozens of convictions are made against major players in a methamphetamine drug ring.
And she was never the same. She looked over her shoulder everywhere she went. Then she had Bradley.
The birth of her second daughter brings April renewed happiness. But before long, the paranoia begins again.
She wouldn't even let her girls sleep in their rooms because she was scared somebody was going to come through the windows and kill them. And all of this paranoia started really taking its toll on her marriage itself.
To subdue her fears, April starts drinking and doing drugs.
Her and Chase had grown very distant. It's hard on me to understand all this fear, this paranoia, people going to kill her. But I was her mom, and I couldn't give up on her.
April has a breakdown and is diagnosed as being bipolar.
April just crumbled, you know? They'd put her on this medication, that medication. She was so beautiful, and then she just started getting thin, and it was just so sad.
With her marriage all but over, April takes her two girls and moves into an apartment.
She took a job at this little Shamrock up the road from where she and Chase lived. The girls had never been away from her. She was hands-on mom all the time.
Just when she thinks life can't get any worse, April's in-laws gain custody of her children.
She went home one day to get some more stuff, and the children were taken from her because she was bipolar. They thought she needed a break.
Separated from her children, April starts socializing with a different crowd.
I met April back sometime in Texas. I was at a friend's house, and we were having a little social gathering.
John Lopez is a truck driver from California who has been staying in Texas with relatives. When John and April meet, the two seem to hit it off.
They decided to go out just to, mingle and have a few drinks and have a good time.
He paid April the attention that she felt she wasn't getting. John came into her life at a time when she needed to feel loved.
Just a few months later, John starts making plans to leave Texas and go back west.
I asked her if she wanted to come out to California and have a different view of the world, And she decided to come out with me.
April's thinking was, well, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And if I put distance between me and Chase and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they'll realize that they need me to take care of these babies.
It's December 2003, and April Pitzer leaves Texas temporarily to clear her head.
And everything was going to be fine, and she's going to have her little girls back and her husband, her beautiful home, and her beautiful life. But it didn't end up like that at all.
The Mojave Desert is at once enticing and dangerous. Home to the mines of the California Gold Rush, explorers and travelers alike have gravitated to the desert for decades in the hopes of realizing dreams at any cost. But once there, April realizes opportunities for an outsider are scarce.
There's a lot of really good people lived out here their entire lives, but for those people who are moving out here trying to get away from the city, there's not a whole lot of work out here.
With so much space and little opportunity for legitimate employment, the desert can be a playground for criminal activity.
Barstow, California is known for methamphetamine capital of the world, so they say. I would say yes, there's some drugs that are floating around in the area. I try to warn her that there's certain places that you can go to that are okay, and then there's other places that you have to watch what you're doing out there.
As it turns out, April is drawn to the very crowd John warns her about.
Didn't even have electricity in that house where she was at. I didn't know.
Coming up, when April Pitzer hits rock bottom, she reaches out for help. But is it too late? When April Pitzer's marriage fails and she loses custody of her children, she leaves Texas and takes a trip out to the California desert to regroup. But a few months after her arrival, April is introduced to an underworld of drug dealers and addicts. Steve Wilkinson remembers when April arrived outside of Barstow in late January 2004.
The house I lived up in was right up on the road, and she was staying back there with her boyfriend.
A lot of people with criminal records living out there.
Her boyfriend and his brother had been arrested quite a bit. I've been arrested a few times for drug cases, so there was a lot of activity.
As a loving mother of two from out of town, April stands out among her new group of friends.
She had that southern accent, you know, a little different, you know, not the normal for out here.
Three months go by, and April's situation is getting increasingly precarious. When she and her new boyfriend break up, April has nowhere to go. With no job and no money, April lives day to day, never knowing where she will eat or who will offer her a bed for the night. She has been lying to her mother, Gloria Denton, about her life out in California.
I didn't know April was homeless and living from place to place. I thought that she had a job and everything was okay.
But life is far from okay for April Pitzer. The desert is an ocean separating her from her children. She is depressed and doesn't know where to turn.
She started walking down National Trails Highway.
A man in a truck passes by and sees April in distress. He pulls over and asks if she needs help.
And she just lost it, started crying, and told him her troubles, and he said, "I'm taking you home to my mama."
April accepts the kind gesture and goes with the man to meet his sick, elderly mother, Barbara Killebrew. They become friends instantly. Both are lonely and seeking companionship.
April was a caregiver. That's all she ever did, you know? I mean, she took care of people.
Taking care of Barbara reminds April of the life she left behind, one she desperately wants to get back to.
Barbara told her, "Your mama needs to know the truth." And April called me, and it was the hardest phone call I ever took.
April tells her mother about the dark road she has traveled.
I was shocked. And she said, "Mama, I just didn't want you to worry." She said, "I was just so ashamed, you know?"
April also says she wants to come home. It's early June 2004, and Gloria Denton immediately starts making plans for her daughter April's return to her hometown in the hills of Clarksville, Arkansas. But April isn't quite ready.
Her mom seemed to think that she wanted to come home, she was ready to. She just hadn't made that commitment that she was going to do it.
While days are spent with Barbara, April still needs a place to stay at night. Unfortunately, Barbara doesn't have an extra bedroom for her at the house. For shelter, she must rely on the kindness of other friends in Newberry Springs.
She'd been staying at my house maybe a couple of weeks or something like that, but she wanted to go see her kids, and that was a good thing for her to go do. You know, it was time for her to leave.
But according to Gloria Denton, her daughter stopped staying at Steve's house not because the timing is right, but because she is scared.
She called me and told me that she ran into this person out there.
In a strange twist of fate, the past has finally caught up with April Pitzer.
She met a girl out here and found out that she knew who she was from back east, because I guess April was a federal informant back there. And it was on that case that this girl's husband went to prison.
There was the girl and her husband that she testified against in the state of Arkansas 7 years later. How's that happen?
According to Steve, when April realizes who this woman is, she overreacts, calling too much attention to her past as a drug informant. After all, many of her new friends have made their careers off the drug trade.
She kept wanting to apologize and say how sorry she was, but the girl didn't want nothing to do with her. Just leave me alone, you know, go away, it's over.
All the years of fear and paranoia are finally substantiated.
I said, oh my God, April, you gotta get out of there. I said, you're gonna die.
Steve Wilkinson was in federal prison on drug charges at the time of those convictions. He remembers the case that April testified in that broke up a major drug ring.
32 people went to federal prison over it. There was chemicals being bought back east, brought out to California for the manufacture of methamphetamine. There were a lot of drugs being sold back there from out here. A lot of people got caught up in it.
Steve is baffled that the woman whose testimony helped make the convictions ends up in his home in California.
That's just like the needle in the haystack. How she could ever land in a place like this and end up in a circle of the people that were involved in that case was real strange.
Gloria wants to wire April money for a bus ticket immediately, but April tells her to wait.
I was moving from Texas to Clarksville during that time. She said, Mama, when you bring all your stuff back from Texas, I'll come to Arkansas, and that way I can help you unpack. I said, okay.
In the meantime, she persuades April to go somewhere safe.
I said, April, is there somebody that you trust where you can stay? And she said, Uncle Chuck.
Chuck Hollister is a quiet, middle-aged man, well known for taking in people who are down on their luck. Over the last few months, April had occasionally stayed at his house off Old Route 66 in Newberry Springs.
She said he's got a nice house and everything, and he's got reliable transportation, and I can go there. I said, okay.
I took her out on Wednesday and dropped her off in Newberry Springs at Chuck's house.
April is just days away from returning to her mother and a place where she will finally feel safe.
She had real high hopes, and she was so excited, you know, oh, Mom, I'm coming home, I'm coming home.
But 1 week later, when Gloria tries to reach her daughter in Newberry Springs, April is nowhere to be found.
I started calling Chuck, because that was the only number I had. When it rang, it rang, it rang, rang, rang. Never could get him, never could get him.
Coming up, police track down a witness who thinks she knows what happened to April. What they learn is chilling. Just when April Pitzer comes clean and asks her mother for help to get back home, a chance encounter from the past causes her to fear for her life. Now, instead of planning a homecoming celebration, April's mother, Gloria, is desperately trying to locate her daughter's whereabouts. And the man April has been staying with, Chuck Hollister, has not been answering his phone.
Tried to call her. Couldn't get her. And on July the 4th, I finally got a call.
April's friend, Barbara Killebrew, had been in the hospital. One of the first things she does when she gets home is phone Gloria to check on April.
Barbara called me and she's like, "How's it feel to have your baby back?" I said, "Barbara, April's not home."
As she hears those words, Gloria begins to fear the worst.
I said, "Barbara, something's happened to April. Who was the last person with her?" And she said, Chuck Hollister. He brought her out here to get her stuff.
He had taken her to several friends' house. He took her to Barbara's house. She was telling everybody goodbye. She had packed her stuff, and her stuff was ready to go.
It's been 8 days since April was last seen. Gloria is frantic and tries to file a missing persons report.
I called San Bernardino County. They wouldn't let me report her missing. They said she just had a bad marriage, lost her kids. April's not missing, she just doesn't want to be found. And I'm like, you don't know my daughter.
Gloria and April have a special bond as mother and daughter.
Everybody thought we were sisters, you know. She was my friend, she was my daughter, she was my everything.
When April was just 3, Gloria Denton lost custody of her 2 children to relatives.
I was 19 years old, and they thought I was too young to be a mother.
For the next 15 years, Gloria fought relentlessly to get her children back. Refusing to lose touch, Gloria and April maintained a close relationship over the years.
Her cards, they tell the story. She loved me very much, and I loved her.
When April is 17, she finally moves home to be with her mother.
We were inseparable, absolutely inseparable, and April said it so well. She's like, "Mama, now we have forever, and nobody can ever separate us again."
Now, in June 2004, Gloria fears she's losing April once again. Days pass, and still no sign of her daughter, and no word from Chuck Hollister.
On July the 16th, I said, "Barbara, you've got to make a report. Something has happened to April. April's gone." I said, "They've done something with her."
This time, police take the report. Then, just 3 days later, Gloria finally gets the call she has been anxiously awaiting. It's from Chuck Hollister.
And finally, he called me back, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I've not been in touch with you." He goes, "I've been moving a friend to Oregon." And I said, "Chuck, where's April?"
Monday morning, he got up to go to work. April was still there. He came home, and April was gone, and he hadn't seen her since. He thought somebody gave her a ride to a bus stop, and she had gone home.
Chuck tells Gloria about April's state of mind the Sunday night before she goes missing.
She had the pictures of her girls out on the counter, and she was crying. She held their pictures up to her heart and said, "I'm going home, I'm going home."
But what Chuck tells Gloria next is very disturbing.
Chuck said that a couple of her bags were still there on the property.
"Oh, it's all here." He said, "There's her little white suitcase, there's her backpack."
Why would April have left all her belongings behind if she was en route to Arkansas? When a month passes and there's still no word from April, investigators begin to search the area.
Missing person flyers were made up and posted throughout Barstow, Daggett, Yermo, Newberry Springs.
The strategy works. On September 9th, 2004, Barstow City transportation employee alerts police to a comment from a bus rider.
A person getting on a local transit bus, seeing the flyer at the bus station, made mention that she knew that person, knew April, and made the comment that, "I know where she's at, she's in a hole."
It's an ominous, disturbing clue. Police track down the witness for further questioning.
She denied saying that she was in a hole, but she did tell me that she was at a party, and somebody at the party, she couldn't remember who, said that April was dead and in a mine shaft.
Detectives have a lead at last. But the fact that there are over 20,000 mines in San Bernardino County alone is daunting. Deputy Coroner and Missing Persons Coordinator David Van Norman is all too familiar with the area in question.
The desert is vast, and it really doesn't help to say that somebody might have been placed into a mine in light of the fact that there are literally thousands and thousands of mines.
We're between Nevada State Line, a major freeway, into Vegas off the 15 freeway. We're not that far from LA.
If somebody gets rid of somebody out here in the desert, it's rare they're ever found.
We seem to be a dumping ground sometimes.
But it's not just the witness's testimony that leads investigators to believe April has been killed and buried in the desert. That same week, in early September, another piece of evidence comes to light, this time from a truck stop 800 miles away in a neighboring state.
A note was written up in Oregon at a truck stop, men's bathroom wall, that said, "Looking for missing girl from Arkansas, 3 miles east of Barstow, I-15 freeway." From Barstow to the Calico exit, ground search was conducted. And again, that's an area where there's hundreds of mine shafts. We had nothing more to go on than that.
Meanwhile, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department obtains surveillance video at the truck stop that captures everyone going into and coming out of the men's bathroom.
It's 24-hour live video, and we have it from June all the way through to the day it was found in September.
In the end, neither the ground searches nor the surveillance video provides any further insight into April's case.
No evidence was found. That doesn't mean that the rumor isn't true.
Coming up, could cryptic notes etched in an old miner's shack hold the answers to April's disappearance? Get more Disappeared online at investigation.discovery.com. It's mid-September, and the search for April Beth Pitzer is heating up. But everyone fears the worst. First, a witness overhears that April's body is in a desert mine, and then a message found in a truck stop bathroom reveals the missing woman from Arkansas is close to Barstow, California, off the I-15. Police and April's mother in Arkansas have begun tracking people down who knew April, desperate for any clues that can explain her disappearance on June 28th.
April didn't have a phone of her own wherever she went. She'd call me collect. I started calling all the phone numbers back, and one person would tell me a little more and a little more and a little more.
Gloria wanted to believe her daughter is still alive, but that hope is fading. She hears many theories about where her daughter's body is, but there is one location that keeps coming up: the mines of Ludlow. It turns out that Chuck Hollister, the last person known to have seen April alive, has a close friend named Dan Dan who claims to own a mine out in Ludlow called the Red Dog Mine.
Chuck and him mine, you know, they made jewelry and stuff.
Dan Dan and Chuck are known rockhounds. They spend a lot of their time together working the Red Dog Mine, about 30 miles east of Barstow.
Dan Dan thought he was going to get rich. The town of Ludlow was part of the Mother Lode during the California Gold Rush.
This was an old mining area back in the late 1800s, and there were some old shacks out there that he'd write his name on, claim that the shacks were his.
Dan often stays out at the Red Dog Mine for days on end. He's a hermit who likes to keep to himself.
He's got a sign on the front, well, handwritten. It says, "If you can read this, then you need to go have a nice day someplace else. Dan."
Dan had started working in this mine back in the 70s. At the very bottom of it, which is about 200 feet deep, he had wrote Dan 1979.
Dan had been around a long time. When he was younger, he was one of the guys that, and you wouldn't want to cross.
The connection between the rumor that April's body might be found deep in a Ludlow mine and the fact that Dan worked the Red Dog Mine in Ludlow is enough for police to investigate further. First, they try to question Dan.
I went by his house on numerous occasions. His vehicle would be there. I'd knock on the door, he wouldn't answer. I would leave my business card. I left missing person flyers asking him to contact me.
Eventually, Dan does talk to the police, but says he knows nothing about April Pitzer's whereabouts. Without gaining any valuable information from Dan, investigators decide to go out to Ludlow and search the area. They begin at the dilapidated mining shacks Dan is rumored to have occupied and are shocked at what they find.
There was some writing, strange writing on the walls inside. Things about him being a sniper in Vietnam, things about trespassing on his property.
What investigators tell Gloria is bone-chilling.
One of the sayings were 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Another one was, if you want to disappear, I can help you. It'll bug me forever because I might have sent her to her doom.
If Dan did actually write these things, was he referring to April's disappearance? Perhaps the Red Dog Mine itself will hold the answers.
Barstow Search and Rescue Team went out there. They also eventually took cadaver dogs out there, and they searched the mine from top to bottom.
But after 2 days with the cadaver dogs, police are confident April's body is not hidden there. There are no clues to indicate April had ever been to the mines. Could all this talk about Dan and the Red Dog Mine be just desert folklore?
Dan continued denying any knowledge of anything about April. He knew her. He didn't know what happened to her. He claimed he didn't do any harm to her.
The search for April is at a standstill. Then, a new and disturbing clue surfaces. In January of 2005, a woman recognizes April from a missing persons poster and realizes this was the same woman who worked for her in June of 2004, likely the same time she was staying with Chuck Hollister. Andre Pruitt, owner of the famous Baghdad Cafe in Newberry Springs, remembers well the day April came into the restaurant.
April came in and asked me for a job, said she needed to have something to do. She said she lived over on one of those dirt roads back there.
Chuck Hollister's house on Caspian Road is just a few blocks from the restaurant.
And I said, we're really not very busy, but I can let you work a few days a week. And then she came back the next day.
On the first day of her job as a waitress, April's appearance makes a lasting impression on Andre.
She looked very nice. She had her hair up. She had on a white blouse and a black skirt, like she was really going to work somewhere. Nice.
At first, April seemed like a good fit at the Baghdad Cafe.
She was very sweet and nice to the customers. I said, well, you know, she'll work out.
Then, on the second day of her new job, what Andre believes to be the days leading up to April's disappearance, she could tell things were not right. April looked like she had been beaten.
She looked like somebody had hit her in her eye because it was blue. I don't know who she was really involved with, but I knew that she was upset the day that I talked to her. I knew she needed to get out of here for whatever the reason. She looked really confused and maybe a little scared.
The mystery remains. Who was April scared of, and why? This was the same time period when April planned on returning home. Could this be the day she went missing?
And then that was the last day that I saw her. She didn't come back.
Coming up, on his deathbed, Dan leaves one last cryptic message in the search for April. Will it lead investigators to her remains? In late December of 2005, while leading a tour group through the old mines of Ludlow, the historian stumbles upon what will prove to be vital evidence.
He went in one of the old abandoned shacks and he seen women's clothing and he said, "Stop." He said, "We gotta leave here."
Hoping to be able to identify the clothes as April's, Gloria is on the first plane out to San Bernardino County in California. This is the first time Gloria Denton will confront the people and places associated with her missing daughter.
I just dropped to my knees when I got out there and I seen it. Just vast sand, hills, desert, shacks.
Gloria remembers how April described the desert in one of their last conversations.
She said, "Mom, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here. You do what you can to survive." And when I got out there, I knew what she meant.
The next morning, Gloria accompanies the search team to the area where the clothes were found. They head out to a mine called the Indian Queen, several miles beyond the Red Dog mine, which police searched 1 year ago. When they arrive, April's mother ventures out to scan the premises for any signs of her daughter. It doesn't take her long.
The first thing I seen was a red and black flannel shirt that I seen her.
Gloria sadly remembers the night April called her, asking for help.
She didn't have any clothes, she didn't have anything. She said, "Mom, it's cold out here. You know, can you send me a coat, something flannel?" So I fixed her up a couple boxes of clothes.
April told her mother how touched she had been to receive the care package.
She held them up to her and smelled them, and that she went in the bedroom and closed the door and just cried and cried because she could smell me and she knew where they came from.
After a thorough search, investigators feel confident April is not at the Indian Queen. But April's mother does not want to give up. Although the Red Dog mine was searched by police 1 year ago, Gloria wants to see it for herself. She asks the coroner, David Van Norman, to take her there. She shudders at what she finds.
When I pulled up, the first thing that I seen was the white suitcase that Barbara Killebrew gave April. It was just a flapping in the wind.
This is the same suitcase Chuck claimed April left behind at his house. It was not here when police searched the Red Dog mine in December of 2005. Now, 1 year later, April's clothes are scattered between the Indian Queen and Red Dog mines. The question persists. How and why did these items get from Chuck's house in Newberry Springs to the mines of Ludlow, 30 miles away?
I don't know how the clothing that Gloria says was her daughter's ended up in the desert, if it was the same clothes that was at Chuck's house.
Police and Gloria may never know the truth. Chuck Hollister is very sick with cancer. Detective Steve Pennington interrogates him one last time.
I asked him, if he had done this, if it was something that he wanted to clear his conscience, and he flat out denied any involvement in her disappearance.
As for the clothes that were found in the desert, they failed to provide any forensic value.
The hot of the desert sun and sometimes the cold of a desert winter will destroy any evidence that could be analyzed from that.
Soon after, Chuck Hollister passes away. As time progresses, the case of April Pitzer gets increasingly complicated and enigmatic.
There's been so many rumors that have floated around out here. We don't want to hear any more rumors. We want to know what somebody actually knows.
At first, I was real hopeful, you know, and you get people telling you all these different things. I finally threw my hands up, and I'm like, look, April didn't die that many times. She wasn't killed that many ways, and she can't be that many places.
Then, in 2009, when Gloria is out in California for yet another search, she hears through the grapevine that Dan, the man who might hold the clues to her daughter's disappearance, is sick and in the intensive care unit.
I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go see this man. He can't die. I could never rest if I'd been out here and I don't go talk to him.
With April's missing person picture on her t-shirt, Gloria Denton confronts the man she believes is somehow involved in her daughter's disappearance.
And he looked at me and I said, Dan, I'm Gloria. I'm April's mom. And I kept on waiting on that hate to come over me, you know, and it just never came.
Dan and Gloria talk for over an hour. His kindness makes Gloria feel as though she has been wrong all along about his role in April's death.
I started crying, and he cried with me. And, you know, he took my hand, and he said, April was a sweetheart, Gloria, and whoever killed that girl needs to be brought to justice.
Then, just days later, before dying, Dan confesses to friends that he knows more about April's disappearance than he let on.
Dan said when he was dying, that girl, April Pitzer, said her mom's in the right place. She's just not been far enough.
I believe when he said we were looking in the right place, he was referring to his mind.
In March 2010, a team of volunteer mine enthusiasts take Dan's words seriously. They have the capabilities of rappelling 3,000 feet deep into mines. If April is farther down in the Red Dog mine, they will find her.
I copy you, Mike. I'm gonna start heading down.
Okay.
On rope! Clear.
Do you want to give us an update of what you're seeing?
It's a clean bottom. There's no debris. It's just a clean bottom.
Once again, the search reveals nothing new.
I can't tell you the nightmares that I've had that April was in Red Dog Mine. No matter how many people have went down there, how many times, I could never get that vision out of my mind. But this time I went, and now I know. You know, she's not down there.
In the 6 years since April went missing, there have been dozens of searches, and not one has gathered a shred of new evidence. Yet investigators and a team of dedicated volunteers persist, largely because of April's mother's tenacity.
So many people don't report their loved ones missing as adults because, well, they're not worthy. That's a prostitute, that's an alcoholic, that's a drug addict, you know. I don't care what they are. They are lives. They have names.
Gloria believes her daughter deserves justice and to be remembered as she was in life before her troubles began.
April was beautiful, full of life. She had a beautiful body, a beautiful soul, a beautiful face, and a heart of gold. Everybody loved her. I so believe she's here. No. You know, I have peace that April's with the Lord. And one thing for sure, nobody can hurt her, nobody can take her from me, and she doesn't have to be afraid. just wished our time together would have been different. But it'll be okay, because we'll do it again. I wish you'd just come running up over the horizon. Say, Mom,